Hello, this is Pete. What are we doing here? I'm gonna do a little manscaping. I got some hair on the back of these fingers. It's got to go. And I'm gonna tell a story while I remove that hair. I'm gonna take these shades off. I don't need them. I don't think I really need my glasses. Probably don't need this ring. It's gonna get in the way. I mean, there's hair there. I need to get rid of it. So the story I'm gonna tell happened in 2002, maybe 2003, out 3, out 2, something like that. It happened to my, well, here, I'm gonna start cutting the hair. It happened to my cousin, sisters, happened to my cousin's sister's mother's brother's son. Let's say his name is Pete. And I take my kids to the zoo in Oklahoma City in the summertime. It's real hot. So evidently it's too hot for the African animals to be out in the Oklahoma sun because they were pretty much all hidden, staying in the shade in the buildings where it's cool. We'd spent all day there. We were pretty wore out and headed toward the exit. Well, we decided to go through this big building when we do. And you know what? These scissors aren't working too good. Let's try this other pair. So we go through the big building where the big animals are. And we're heading toward the exit. We'd been there all day. Everybody's tired. I got my son with me. He's 1 or 2. His sister is 1 or 2. And his older sister who's 2 or 3. And we get in the big animal closure and we hear this noise. Sounds kind of like a baby blowing bubbles. Kind of like a, which is very difficult to do. And it's been a long time since I heard that, so I really can't get it quite perfect. We get to this rhino. There's 2 rhinos. They're in separate pens in this building. And one of them's just standing there not doing anything. The other one is bouncing around, going nuts. And making these baby noises like a baby blowing bubble. And he's doing that. The other one not doing nothing. I'm infatuated. I can't leave. I'm like, this is great. We're at the zoo and something's happening. My wife's like, I gotta go to the restroom. And she says, I'm ready to go. Let's go. I said, oh no, I gotta stay here for this activity. We're at the zoo and something's happening. I cannot just walk off and leave it. She says, well, I can. I'm going to the restroom. And you better catch up pretty quick because I don't want to have to do this by myself with these 2 girls. And she took 2 girls. I had the boy with me. And she leaves. Now I'm pretty nervous because I know I'm fixing to be in trouble if I don't get there when she does to use the restroom. But I stand there with my son and we watch this rhino bouncing around, making his noises, and I start making them back, blowing bubbles at this rhino. As soon as I do, he freezes and then he starts bouncing around. all angry. And he's wondering who's making these noises challenging him. So he starts hitting one of these tires that's hanging on the wall. He hits it hard too. And I can tell that there's a reason why I never heard of a rhino rodeo, or I never saw a rhino tamer at the circus. It's because these things can't be tamed. They're mean and they're tough. So he keeps hitting that tire and I keep making noise at him. He keeps making noises back. Pretty soon this big guy comes up and he's got his wife and kids with him. And he's like, honey, look, this rhino is going nuts. He says, and she says, I don't care, I'm tired, I'm ready to go. Same as with me and mine. And he says, well, let's just stand here for a little bit. And this guy is kind of like he's a big guy. Got his cut off t-shirt. You know, the kind that's cut off down below the rib cage. Hair sticking out. Kind of looks like Cro-Magnon. But not a pretty Cro-Magnon like Brandon Fraser in Encino, man. More like the Nicolas Cage in Croods. While he's standing next to me, I decided to make that noise one more time. And I do, and that rhino freezes. And he turns his rear toward us, just a little off kilter. And he's looking at us with this eye. They don't look like we do. Their eyes are on the side of their head. If he's turned a little bit to you, he's looking right at you. And I do this noise again. And this thing turns directly, he looks, I think he's looking at me, but I realize he's looking at this guy standing next to me because he's taller. He can see him better. He turns his rear toward us, and he you know what, I keep calling him a he, but I ain't so sure what I saw when he turned his rear toward us. It's like two big old bean bags pushed together, and below it was this, I guess it was a tally, and it what he does with it is like, well, you know when you're fishing and you get that worm between your fingers and you go to put a hook in it and that worm pulls back into itself to get away from that hook. That's what he did with his. But his was like as big around as my fist. And when he does, it makes this squirting sound like a huge squirt gun. And it shoots a spray of urine over the wall. And it comes down, some of it lands on my arm, not very much, because he was really pointing at the other guy. And the bulk of it lands on this guy's arm, right in there. And at the very same time, him and his wife go, babe, that is and this is where they change up. She says, the grossest thing I've ever seen. And he says, the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I'm thinking, man, these guys, he's just like me. He's just bigger and hairier. But they're both saying the same things we are. Well, I decide it's time for me to go catch my wife before some trouble starts. Well, I already know I'm in trouble. So I start heading down to the other end of the building, and I go around the curve. Well, this curve, it's a little bit long, a little bit brighter at the other end of the building. I'm like, that's weird. And I turn the corner, and I can see that it's not that the building is actually brighter. It's because my wife is at the other end of the building, and she is mad. I know why. It's because I waited too long watching that rhino. Well, I walk up to them, and they're at the penny smashing machine. That makes me part mad, because I'm like, you put a penny in, and you pay a penny and 3/4. You turn a crank on a handle, and you get a penny back that is smashed. You can't use that penny for anything. The only thing you can use it for is when grandma's laying on the couch taking a nap. You can take that smashed penny, it's kind of oval shaped, put a little bend in it, and lay it over her eyes that are closed. You know, like you would a dead person. And of course, when she wakes up, she starts screaming and hollering about, you're going to be the death of her. And you think that's funny, because you're a kid. Even though it's like, boy, if she really died, I don't know if I could live with myself. But it's no fun to do to Grandpa, because he's just going to wake up. Penny's going to fall off his eyes. He's going to say, oh, I don't know what I'd do without you kids. And then he's quiet for a while, thinking probably about what he'd do without you kids and how he can get rid of you and not spend the rest of his life in prison. So, you don't do Grandpa. And I get up to her and she says, where have you been? I said, I was right where you left me, watching that rhino. And she says, well, we don't have any pennies. I got plenty of quarters, but I need some pennies. Oh, I said, it's okay. I got pennies. I'm going to give you pennies. I give her pennies. They turn the crank. Ka-chong. They get their penny out. That ain't worth nothing. But it's got a neat thing of Oklahoma City Zoo on it. And neat image. She says, I had to go use the restroom with these girls all by myself. I said, I know. I've done that before. Ain't no big deal. She said, well, while I was using the restroom, they were crawling around on the floor, crawling under the stall doors and everything. I had to wash their hands twice because they're crawling around on the floor. So, I'm feeling bad. And she says, what took you so long? Wait, did I tell you she was mad? She's mad. The building was white hot from her glow. And I said, darling, I just finished irritating the piss out of a rhinoceros. Now, if you ever see a big guy who says he was in Oklahoma City Zoo back in the old noughts, and a rhinoceros peed on him, you can say, oh, wait right there, buddy, because I know the whole story. Pete told me. And that's pretty much it. Now, I said I was going to trim the hair on the back of my fingers, and I'll guarantee you there ain't no hair on the back of my fingers. But what brought this on, and I wasn't going to be cutting my hair again. I was going to let it grow out, be natural. I was going to be all like, people would say, Pete, what res are you from? And I would say, I've got a piece of rock candy, but it's not for eating. It's just for looking through. You know, like Big Chief George? That's how I was going to grow my hair out. Nice and long. But can't go. What happened was I was watching a movie with Beau Bridges, who I like, and Lou Gossett Jr. I'm like, these guys are in the same movie. I think it's called Supervised. And I said, Beau Bridges is like old enough to be my dad. And he's got long hair. To which I get the reply, you ain't got hair like Beau Bridges. And I say, well, I could have. No, you can't. Because you got frizzy hair. And it don't look right when it's long. Like, dang it, he's old enough to be my dad. But it can't be. I don't know if I'll ever do this again. But I'm doing it today to make the family happy. I like the hair long. Yeah, Beau Bridges, he was in a great movie called Sidekicks. Had Joe Piscopo and Mako, Chuck Norris. Great movie. Lou Gossett Jr. was in a great movie too called Enemy Mine. And it had Dennis Quaid, I believe, a guy named Brian James. Any movie he's in is a good movie. Brian James, he's going to be kind of like Joan Cusack. Whenever you see the movie, in fact, any movie those two are in, it should be called the Joan Cusack movie or the Brian James movie, because you just sit around waiting for them to come back on the screen. An example would be Addams Family Values. All you do through the movie is wait for Joan Cusack to come back on the screen. Brian James, it's like, is that guy really acting, or is he really like that? It's like, no, he's just a good actor. What's that other guy's? Chief Dan George, was that who I said? Outlaw Josie Wells was a good movie, but I liked Little Big Man better. Definitely a classic, maybe the best Western of all time. So I'm saying goodbye there. Make the family happy. You know, when you got long hair, you don't need a hat in the summertime. You don't need one in the wintertime. You just need your hair. And mine's gone. It'll be another 10 months before it gets to where I can feel that it's starting to get long enough. I pretty much think that the hair on the back of my hands, at least my left hand, is short enough, because I'm starting to nick my knuckles. Never good. Nicking your knuckles. And that's it. Hair gone. Maybe I'll shave sometime. Enough said.